That's awesome. Okay. So we knew we were going to get to this point, right?
Yeah.
Where it was going to be this awkward weirdness.
We were going to talk about how...
So we've talked about you being an entrepreneur and an artist. Let's
Yeah.
talk about you being a lesbian.
So a little bit about my childhood.
I carry on like I carry my pack, even if I don't come back.
Hit that. Make sure you don't edit that out.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate the welcome back lawyers part. I hate it.
Welcome back.
Okay, seriously. I got to get serious.
Okay.
All right. Oh, I hate this part. Why? Why do I hate this part so much?
Because it's an awkward intro.
Well, it's just
We're gonna
not
make
me.
sure this is
Yeah.
not cut out. Actually, this will be fun.
Is this great? Okay.
funny, yeah.
Awesome. Well, then welcome back, Warriors. It's been a couple months. We've been dealing with the pandemic. All of us have. It's been crazy, crazy times for all of us. But we're back and we're all excited to be here. We're here today with Katie Shaffstall. She is an entrepreneur and an artist and also a lesbian.
Don't forget lesbian.
That is the most important part. The most important part. So welcome to the show, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited.
Yes, me too.
It's finally like the first interview where I know somebody, so I'm a little more laid back.
It's the first time I put pants on in about 9 weeks, so
Oh my-
I'm pretty excited too.
Pants in general
Yeah.
or jeans?
Okay, something with the zipper.
Okay, me
Zipper,
too.
mascara, shoes. I'm not at the grocery store, so it's a win.
Yeah, I have forgotten how to put makeup on
Yeah.
and brush my hair. That happens like twice a week.
Yeah, I gotta wash the mats out every once in a while.
Right, right. Sometimes I need assistance, maybe cutting out some of the knots, but we're
Yeah,
good.
we're good.
We're good. So tell us a little bit. I know entrepreneurial
Yes.
skills.
Yes. So I'm Katie. I am in pharmaceutical sales by day, and I'm a sneaker artist at night.
Drug dealer by day.
Drug dealer by day, sneaker artist by night.
Super great.
Yeah. So originally from Texas, lived in Colorado about 5 or 6 years now. Love it here. It's great.
It's so great.
Yeah. Made some great friends, obviously.
The best friends.
Yeah. You.
The most awesome
Yeah,
friends ever.
you.
Right.
Yeah. And then I've been doing the shoe thing for about 7 years now. So
The shoe thing is so cool because I'm not artistic at all.
Yeah.
I can't even draw a stick person, and when I see your shoes, I'm like, holy shit, how does she do this?
you'd be surprised. I think more people can do it than they give themselves
No,
credit
unless
for.
it's tracing and airbrushing, that's about all I could do. And
That's
then
what I do.
But I'd still smear it. I would still screw it
That's
up.
what I
know.
do. Yeah. So
That's exciting. Like, I used to do retail sales. So I used to sell and dress athletes. And
Yeah.
what you provide for them is something that everybody sees. Nobody knows that I sold them their True Religion jeans.
Yeah.
But your shoes are branded. Like, how did you get into that? How did you...
well, it's funny that you say you were in retail because that's kind of where I got my not big break by any means, but that's kind of where like I knew that I was a sneakerhead is what everyone calls it.
Okay.
So during high school and college, I worked at a shoe store, Champ Sports. Sold shoes, did the whole thing, like the Saturday morning Jordan release every weekend and that kind of stuff. So that's where I kind of like got into shoes. I was kind of into it when I was a kid too. I remember like in 5th grade, I did a project on the guy who like came up with Nike, Phil Knight. Like I dressed up as him.
Nobody-
Lesbian. Dressed up as him and did a book report on him. All people are doing like MLK and stuff, and I thought this was like my hero. So like always been into shoes. So yeah, like I said, did the retail thing. I've always been into it, and then started painting stuff about 7 years ago. Just had somebody who, also stood in line with me at stores, asked me, hey, this shoe's white, can you paint it black? So it kind of just started like that.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
And we're done.
in scene.
That's awesome. Okay. So we knew we were going to get to this point, right?
Yeah.
Where it was going to be this awkward weirdness.
We were going to talk about how...
So we've talked about you being an entrepreneur and an artist. Let's
Yeah.
talk about you being a lesbian.
So a little bit about my childhood. Yeah, so being a lesbian. Actually, okay, if we're being honest, I've known since I would say like in kindergarten, since I was that I was different. It was never that I was gay. Like I felt like there was like something wrong with me,
Okay.
which sounds really terrible now in the like world that we live in, and people are more open to it and whatnot. But like I grew up in Texas, family is very conservative. And yeah, like I said, I just knew there was like something different, something wrong with me. that's what I knew what it was. I didn't know like being gay is what it was.
Right.
You know, if that makes sense.
Right, for sure.
Yeah. So
Texas conservative, making it hard for you. I guess I'm naive to the fact of thinking that maybe someone in a generation younger than me, like yourself, that it would be an easier thing to come out than, say, my generation, where it was quote unquote less accepted. I mean, obviously there's still people out there that don't accept it, and it's still, people hate on it. But so it wasn't easy for you growing
and the
up.
crazy thing about that is, so I've been married for 2 years, almost 2 years now.
To one of our awesome friends.
Yeah,
Kelly.
are you out there?
Shout out.
But yeah, so I've been married for 2 years, and I also, like I said, I work in pharmaceutical sales, which is also pretty conservative. I work with doctors and nurses and stuff like that. So it's not something that I'm like openly parading about that I'm gay. So I think like being married, I've been able to come to terms with the fact that I was different, or that thing that I thought when I was a kid that there was something wrong with me. I'm finally like okay with telling people casually that, hey, yeah, this is my wife, this is who I love, and this is who we are, kind of thing. So yeah.
How did your parents react? I mean, when you came out, what was that like?
Yeah, so I came out when I was, well, first of all, let me say that I think that every gay person has to come out multiple times.
Okay.
No matter how old you are, you could be 40 and start a new job and you have to come out again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a ever evolving kind of thing. But, when I first came out to my parents, I was 15. And I say my parents because I assumed that I came out to both of them by just telling my mom, but I actually just told my mom.
Yeah, you're like, you need to tell dad?
Yeah.
I don't want to.
I just thought that when we talked about this, you knew you were supposed to tell him.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. I still have those conversations with my mom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, do you remember AOL Instant Messenger?
Yes, I do.
So I met this girl on there. I think there was like chat rooms or stuff that you could get in. Like when, you still had dial-up, the internet first kind of started.
Right.
Yeah, so, I'd log on every day after school. And so I started talking to this girl. And I had no idea that, like, I had boyfriends and stuff up until this time. But I had no idea that I could ever, like, have feelings for a woman.
Okay.
And so she kind of, like, I don't think that she knew either. It was kind of like both of our first.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would talk on AIM till the late hours of the night, 9 p.m. when you're in like...
Oh my gosh. When your mom's yelling for you to get off the
grade.
computer. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have an office in our downstairs area, and I didn't realize my mom was behind me. So she was behind me reading everything that I was typing on the screen to this girl. And we were kind of like talking about how we both liked each other, but like we were discovering it together. And my mom was reading that. And I felt like someone behind me. And she's like, I knew it. I knew you were gay. Da, da, da. Like almost got like angry. Like didn't really like give me a chance to, because I was still trying to figure it out.
Right.
Like, what is this about me? And, like it's something that I felt my whole life up until that point. So it almost felt like normal, but I didn't realize that it was like a thing until she made it a thing. So I remember like she went upstairs, she slammed her door, I could hear her crying. Like I went to bed, we didn't talk about it that night, and it was just kind of like that was that. So like I said, I was like 15 then. I talked with that girl for a little bit back and forth. We actually met up one time. That was pretty cool.
Where'd you meet them all?
No. Another story. That's a long story, but I finally got my first girlfriend in high school. And that's when I felt like I needed to come out to my mom and like actually like tell her. Like, I don't know, like I just had this like feeling in my stomach that like I just had to get it out, that feeling that you get. So it was like the weekend and I was like freaking out and I was like, Mom, I really got to talk to you about something. And she was like, okay, what is it? And I was like, I think I'm gay. And she was like, yeah, I know. We already talked about this a long time ago. Why are you telling me again? And I was
You're like, well, we didn't talk about it.
And I was like, oh. So I'm like having all this anxiety and like I was working myself up to that and felt like I had to like talk about it when she was not like in the mood to talk about it at all,
Right.
And like I kind of realized like looking back now that my whole life I've kind of had anxiety. I always thought I had like stomach issues, like I had to get like tested for all this like stomach stuff, but it turns out I've been anxious my whole life. And I don't know if it's because I've like not felt comfortable in my own skin kind of thing or what it is, but I mean, dealing with being a lesbian and my mental health my whole life has been pretty difficult.
Your mental health. Can
Yeah.
you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I was kind of anxious like growing up, but I never knew that it was anxiety.
Okay.
Like I said, I thought it was always the stomach thing. I always had these stomach aches. I had to go to the nurse's office. I was always leaving school.
Can I interrupt you really
Yeah,
quick?
absolutely.
I'm wondering, with a conservative family and mental health, I know a lot of things get pushed under and it's quiet. And even after coming out to your mom, were things that you would try to portray to them kind of not hush hush, but almost made you to feel like, oh, there's nothing wrong, you're going to be fine. So you couldn't actually say, I'm feeling this
Yeah.
way and I need help.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, living in a conservative family and asking for help isn't a thing.
Right.
Right. And like I see that even now, like now that I'm in touch with like my mental health, like I've been to therapy. Shout out to my wife because she's the first person who
Yay.
ever like got me to go to therapy. I always like not only did I look down at myself because I was gay, but it was also like I was looking down at myself because I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin and I was having this anxiety. So like I didn't feel comfortable talking about that nor being gay. And back to your point, like, yeah, it's all hush hush under the rug. I just assumed my mom was going to tell everyone else for me. So like I never came out to my dad. I never came out to my grandma who I was really close with. And I think that kind of like ate away at me. So yeah, so that was like conversations that I never had.
So you say never had, meaning those people are no longer with us.
Yeah. So they're no longer with us. I know that my mom did talk to my grandma because my grandma asked me a couple questions like when I was in college about who I was hanging out with,
Yeah.
who my friends, air quotes, who my friends were. Me and my dad, growing up, so I've played sports my whole life.
Softball, let me guess. All the lesbians
Good call.
play
Good
softball.
call. Started in softball,
Right.
should have known. Started in softball, and in basketball, should have known. So he was the kind of guy that's like every game, every practice, everything that had to do with the sports. But like we never had that relationship that was like, here, let me give you a hug. Let me tell you I love you.
Right.
Like I was a senior in high school and it was like our senior night game. And I remember like they bring all the seniors into center court and their parents are there and they give you flowers. And I remember my dad gave me flowers and he gave me a hug and I was like, man, this is weird. Because we never
So
hugged.
that
It wasn't
embrace.
like that.
Yeah.
So going back to my dad a little, like I said, we never had that conversation. After I graduated college, I moved away from Texas. I moved to Las Vegas.
Whoa.
What a time.
Whoa.
I moved there. So we were, we talked a little bit here and there. But at the same time, my parents got divorced. So my dad was trying to like talk to me and my brother and sister a lot more. There was two different sides of the story with the divorce, as everyone who's gone through that knows. And he found Jesus again, which is great. I mean, I grew up in the church, which is also kind of hard being gay.
Yeah.
In that conservative place where everything's tucked under the rug. So he found God again, and that's when he decided to say, like, listen, like, I think I was like 26. And he's like, listen, I'm not, like, it's not okay what you're doing. Like, you're going to hell. The Bible says that a man should be with a woman. Two women shouldn't be together. And I remember thinking, like, okay, I've graduated college. I got my first job when I was 14. I bought my first car. You've taught me nothing but to, like, be independent and take care of myself. And that's when I first started in the pharmaceutical industry. Like, I was making good money. I bought my first house. And I would just remember, like, feeling like he's really talking down to me right now when I'm a good person.
Right.
And so he's like, you're going to hell. And I was like, listen, Dad, like, I'm an adult. When you feel like you want to talk to me again like an adult, we'll have this
Right.
conversation again. And that was the last conversation that we ever had.
Wow, that's tough.
Yeah, so he passed away 2 years later. He was at home by himself, taking a bath. And they say natural causes, but I think that it could have been like a heart issue. So, like, he's in the bath, 3 days later, like somebody comes and knocks on the door and he's still sitting there. So like super unexpected, like crazy.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
You know,
and so that's the last conversation that we had.
I'm sure that helped with the mental health aspect
Yeah, so
of
much.
not needing therapy.
Yeah, at all.
I can't even imagine. Oh my goodness, that happened with my uncle. He passed away like that, and the neighbors found him. And
Yeah, that's
I
who found
can't
my
even-
dad, the neighbors.
oh,
It's crazy. Yeah, you just never like imagine that the last conversation that you have with someone is going to be the last conversation, especially when it ends like that.
right.
Yeah. So a little bit more about like the mental health part of it.
Yeah, because I think that's really hard, especially right now with the pandemic. I think a lot of people are struggling with mental health for all different reasons.
Yeah.
Marriages are suffering, children are suffering with not being with their friends and their teachers.
Yeah.
Parents are ready to murder their children or each other because they're trying to teach and co-parent. And
Yeah.
so I think it's a huge subject that has always been very taboo to kind of talk about. So I think it's great that you just burped.
Yeah.
And also that
The
we
drink,
can...
you know. Yeah, so like I said, growing up in a conservative family, everything's always pushed under the rug. Like I said, you know, I didn't realize what I was having my whole childhood was anxiety. Depression runs in my family. It's more of a chemical imbalance than anything. So about 10 years ago, I unfortunately had a lot of people in my life die in a very short span of time, people that meant a lot to me. My grandma, who was almost like my second mother, my father, my great uncle and my grandpa all died within 4 years. And that's kind of like when everything really blew up for me mentally. Mm-hmm. It was always there, but I didn't know what it was. Yeah. So that's when the depression like really, really hit in. I think I was like a sophomore in college. Never went to therapy, still wasn't a thing. And I feel like now, like, I'm such an advocate for therapy because I've gone, and it literally is life-changing for anyone, even though it's, like, so scary. And I just push for it for anyone who's having issues because it really does help. But, yeah, so I got on all the meds, you know, taking an antidepressant, taking anti-anxiety. Then I moved to Vegas. I was away from my family, away from my friends, started a new career. Things were tough there too. It wasn't until I met my wife almost 6 years ago that like she really supported and was like, you know, therapy's not bad. Therapy's great. These are the things that it does. You should just go. And honestly, that changed my life. Like there were points in my life where I was very suicidal. You know, obviously the thing with my dad was a really big deal and my parents not necessarily accepting me. It was never like, I envy those kids who are like best friends with their parents and they talk about all their relationships and their boyfriends and stuff like that because that was never a thing.
Right.
Like it's like my family knows me, but we always avoided like the personal part of me, if that makes sense.
I totally get that. I feel like my family's become closer after my situation, my struggle with cancer.
Right.
And I really, from a personal level, I can appreciate so much that you talk about therapy because over the last couple months after the shit that I've been through, it's like you think about divorce and cancer diagnosis and surgeries and all these different things that even stem back to when we're children and we think that something's wrong.
Yeah.
Or all these experiences that make us who we are. I've always thought that therapy or being on, you know, you don't know how, for me personally, I don't know how to recognize the difference of just having a mood swing or being depressed. Like, I don't get those things. And I think you're 100% right. I think therapy is a great thing for other people. Like, I've just come to terms with the fact that I probably should talk to somebody because then, you know, it becomes deeper and deeper. And these things that started as surface things, like from not as simple as to, or a cancer diagnosis, but then I look even deeper and I go, okay, so now I have this survivor's guilt. I have all these things that stem from one situation that you don't even know how far back those go into the roots of who you are.
And you really don't know unless you talk about it. And it's being vulnerable, which is really hard.
Well, and for me, I feel like the being vulnerable part is easy. I mean, you know me as a person. I'm an open book.
Yeah.
But it's the person talking to the person that doesn't know you that almost should make it easier, I think makes it a little bit harder because you do have to bring up those things that maybe other people don't know or only your closest friends know. And you think
Right.
like, I talk about shit like, oh, it's all good. Like, I'm good. But I feel like maybe if I sat down with a doctor or somebody that could say, you are good, but let's touch on this
Yeah.
and bring it more to the surface so that you can heal internally, because there's so many things that you don't even know are affecting you.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. And yeah, I definitely learned that. My sister's transgender. So actually gender neutral, transgender, non-binary. A lot of terms, but I
All
finally,
the- yeah.
all the terms, but I finally get them, and I'm like so proud of them for coming out and like being who they are. But therapy was so big for them.
That's so
And
great.
it was also, I mean, Spencer was kind of in the same boat that I was, from Texas, conservative, but like going through so many more things than I was.
Right.
And
Well,
like
right.
having to be okay with that and be okay with themselves. And I just think like people who are struggling, even like people who aren't struggling with their mental health, just getting to know yourself by going to therapy and talking about the things that maybe make you uncomfortable, talking to with other friends or family, it just helps you really understand yourself. And like you said, like maybe you don't understand if you're having like a mood swing or you're depressed, but like I feel like I've been able to work on that so much, and with the proper medication, and being in touch with like who I am has been so helpful.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're so much cooler than I ever thought you were. Awesome. So I know that we've been in this serious conversation, a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling. I'm super excited to talk about Shaffstall kicks. So
Yes.
tell me more about that.
Yes. So it started as a hobby, and now I am making shoes for celebrities, athletes. I started making shoes from scratch about a year ago. I mean, it's just taking off. It's amazing.
So all this, I know your brand, your shoes are amazing. I have already told you I want tons of pairs.
Yeah.
I want to rep my nephew. I want all these things, but I know that a couple months ago, maybe you faced some adversity with the whole Instagram thing. I don't know if that's something we can talk about,
we
but
can
you kind of had to
definitely talk about
rebrand
it.
yourself, right?
Yeah, it was really crazy. So, my favorite basketball player growing up, Sue Bird, she played at UConn. She plays for the Seattle Storm. She's a Olympic athlete. I mean, honestly, the coolest person, one of the coolest people I've ever met. I made shoes for her for the USA UConn game. The USA team did like a tour before the Olympics, which unfortunately didn't happen this year.
Right.
She wore the UConn shoes that I made pregame and then gave them away to a fan.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. And the fan had to be like so excited that she gave them to her.
Right.
Posted on my Instagram. Somebody else had me make some more UConn shoes for them, posted those on my Instagram. And so it was like a Saturday morning. I woke up, I checked my email, and I have a thing that Instagram's like, oh, we took down 2 of your posts for copyright infringement. And I was like, oh, that's really crazy. Like, there's so many people like myself who create sneaker art.
Right.
Whether they just started or they've been doing it for 10 years that are putting logos on stuff. And I was like, well, that really sucks. So that's a slap on the hand. I probably shouldn't do that anymore. And then the next thing I know, I go onto my Instagram a few hours later and it's been deactivated. So like the whole thing's gone. I had like 8,000 followers that I've been building up. A lot of it's hard to get in touch with people who have a following, who are athletes, who are celebrities, if they're not already following you. So like trying to rebuild that, I had people's shoes.
Right.
And I made the mistake of talking and doing everything through Instagram DMs rather than what I should have done, looking back at it now, is been texting everyone or calling everyone and taking their emails and whatnot. So like all those people I had their shoes, I didn't have their information, which sucked.
Right.
Because I don't want to have your shoes and not be able to get them to you.
Right.
What am I going to do with a size 13 Jordan 1 besides stare at it? So I had to completely redo my brand. Luckily, I still had quite a few people's phone numbers who were able to like shout me out, like Sophia Bush. I had shoes for her that I just mailed to her, hoping she would get them during a pandemic. When you can't mail them to her, you have to like mail them to her assistant, and then she has to get them, and then like you hope that she knows that you sent them.
All the same problems we have,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
With our assistants. And,
right.
Yeah,
my
because we're
assistant
super important
never
too.
knows. No. So like I was like, I hope she gets them, because it would be really great for her to shout me out. Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe really helped me out. They do this Instagram live series every Saturday.
I saw it.
And they shouted me on there, which was super helpful.
They were pissed about it.
Yeah. Like literally pissed.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to see.
That's super great.
Like, I appreciate the love, and it just makes me feel like I'm really fighting for a brand that really matters. So,
well, if people want to follow you, where can they follow you on Instagram? Because this is super important.
Yeah, it is
We
important.
think you're amazing, and we want everybody to follow you.
So it's at K Shaffstall Kicks _ Had to add the underscore because my old one was at K Shaffstall Kicks. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
You're like famous. You're like the most famous friend I have. Well, that's a
No
lie.
way. That's a lie. There's no
but
way.
You're the most
I know
Instagram
you.
famous.
There's no way.
But I think you're amazing. We're so grateful that you were here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for being here. We think you're amazing. And now everybody else that watches this amazing podcast is going to know how amazing you are. And we thank you for being a true dynamic warrior and living the lifestyle.
Well, thank you for letting me share my story.
Dude, your story's legit. Now let me
Put this
crown
on my
you.
wrist.
Crown you.
I do accept your
do?
bracelet.
Yes.
Yes, I love
Sorry,
it.
Kelly.
I've been a big supporter of Dynamic Warriors from the very beginning. I love everything about them, so
Yes.
love being here.
And we love you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.